More Harry Maguire leaks, more Harry Maguire stories, talks about him leaving, and big criticism from Manchester United legend Rio Ferdinand. We're going to jump into all of that and more. Make sure you've smashed that like button. Make sure you've shared this stream across your social media platforms. I really want to hear your opinions as well in the comments sections on this. We'll move on to the Rio Ferdinand stuff in a few moments, but there was a number of leaks again in the past 24 hours. Some stuff coming out of the club is very positive. Man United approaching new managers and looking to progress. Part of that progression, though, is moving individual players on. And Harry Maguire is somebody's name who continues to come up. It is said that Harry Maguire has upset a number of Man United teammates this season by openly blaming them on the pitch for making mistakes when his own performances have been so erratic, and by some of his critical post-match comments to the media. Now, interestingly, this very much echoes what Manchester United fans have said at these given times, that in fact, I don't want to say his attitude, because I think that's sometimes the wrong word, but his lack of kind of self-awareness at times has frustrated fans. So there's no doubt in my mind that this would also not frustrate the players. Harry Maguire has had a atrocious season. If you compare how he's playing now compared to his first 12 months at the club, the regression is palpable. The erosion is sending shockwaves across the Man United fan base. £80 million. It feels like it's down the drain. Now, there are a section of Man United fans that are still defending Maguire. They're debunking these stories. They're suggesting that this is all just to create hype and noise around Manchester United. I don't buy into that. Man United have been leaking like a broken fridge for nearly a decade. The volume of information that comes out is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not one who just believes it when it's about a player I dislike or a player I'm unhappy with. I believe players have leak all types of information out of this football club. I believe officials leak all types of information out of this football club. And it generally is to suit their purpose. This, for me, I don't really get what people get out of this. This is more just a conversation. I think what you find a lot at Man United is players that are being dropped, players that are being rotated out the teams, find it frustrating that, Maguire might still be continuing to play. So they go to the media and they speak, either directly or via their intermediaries, and say what is frustrating or upsetting them. It's interesting as well, recently, a couple of journalists I was quite friendly with didn't like my accusations that Man United players were leaking information to their eyes without evidence. And the irony in this is some of these journalists, their profile pictures are them and Gary Neville. They're very chummy with Gary Neville, who's the man that literally said the players are leaking all of this information. So for me, I believe Gary Neville on this 110%. I haven't changed my stance. I haven't changed my position. As a fan talking about this, it's clear that information is being leaked. It's too frequent, and there is no smoke without fire. Do the media embellish in these stories? Absolutely. Will the media, put one and two and two together and sometimes come up with 37? Absolutely. But that's only made possible by the leaks in the first place. So the exaggerating from the media shouldn't be the focus. The people leaking the information should. So again, I'm not happy that it's come out that Maguire is frustrating his teammates. I'm not happy that it's come out that in the same report that although Rangnick is publicly supporting Maguire, it's understood that a new centre-back is high on the priority list this summer. I'm not happy that this information comes out. It doesn't fill me with any kind of, I'm really glad they're calling out someone that I want gone. They're calling out somebody that I don't like. They're calling out somebody whose post-match interviews annoys me. We have to lace ourselves with so much more principle as a fan base. It's unbelievable. Stop attacking the media for running with this. Stop attacking YouTubers who do stories about it. Stop attacking people on Twitter that believe that go after the leaks. It isn't about the sensationalism or the conversations that come after the fact. It's the leaks. These journalists, in my opinion, are not making these stories up. Sammy McBell is a highly credible journalist who is growing in the industry will move to the top in the next 5 to 10 years. Sensational, credible, very well respected across the spectrum. He isn't going to make up stories from unverified, uncredible sources. He isn't going to do that. What I find with most fan bases now, if the story comes out via the media that's detrimental, they reject it. If it's positive, they love it. And I'll give you an example of this. I'll give you a big example of this. Matt Law, when he started reporting on the club Chelsea being for sale, I had Chelsea fans tell me he wasn't that credible when it comes to Chelsea news. Club was up for sale. A few weeks back, when The Athletic were talking about rifts within Chelsea because of the Lukaku situation, The Athletic, by the Chelsea fan base, was being called a clickbait business. Clickbait, sensationalist, you don't know what you're talking about. The same newspaper was fairly complimentary in many ways of Roman's handling of the situations in recent weeks, and they shared certain information and stories about the future of the club and how it's going to be protected, and how there are insurance policies, and how Roman isn't going to try and have these loans repaid at the time if he sold. Suddenly, The Athletic was the most credible source on earth because it suited what you wanted to hear. And this is my point with a lot of Man United fans. I get that you don't believe every element of an article, or you don't like the opinion piece that's connected to the leak that's come out of the football club. But that is, for me, secondary to the fact this information is coming out. It really is. At the same time, Rio Ferdinand has spoken, for me, very candidly about Maguire in recent weeks. He says, if I'm a quick attacker, I'd hang around Maguire. Rio Ferdinand says the Man United captain's lack of pace is a big weakness and questions if the Red Devils can win the league with him as he struggles in one-on-ones on the halfway line. And Rio Ferdinand is absolutely right to suggest this, to talk about this, and to call this out. He's absolutely right to do this. Football has changed dramatically in one area. People think technically it's got better, and it definitely has over the last decade, and a lot of that comes actually from academies now being given a lot more time on the training ground technically with their players compared to a decade and beyond ago. I remember very candidly Ferguson talking about this, that I've got to try and find this interview somewhere, but he essentially said that in the UK, we get like an hour and a half a day working technically with our kids coming through the ranks, where a lot of the European and international counterparts get anywhere between sort of 3 to 5 hours a day on the training ground. So in the space of a week, a player in Spain might do 25 hours of football work. An English player was doing 5 hours. You only have to run that maths over a 3 to 4 year period to see how much more technically proficient a Spaniard or an Italian or a Brazilian is going to be compared to an English or British player. So we've seen the levels rise. We've seen the technical ability in the Championship improve. Even League One improve to levels that we've never seen before. But the biggest fundamental change in football has been the athleticism, the speed, the power, the fitness levels of players. The athletic element in players now is gargantuan compared to where it used to be. Maguire is being left behind. The higher lines, the faster paced game, he just hasn't been able to adapt to it at a bigger club where you're more exposed. This is why sometimes you can see a defender in a Brighton setup, in a Newcastle setup, in a Leicester setup at times, where they might have 3 at the back, or they might be quite compact in a lot of the ways they play and they counter. And a centre-back can look brilliant. And that's because he's got 2 or 3 players around him, and he's got a line of 2 to 4 midfielders in front of him that are very close. So there's very little space in between the lines and in the half spaces for players to operate. There is an element of protection. When you move to a Liverpool, a Manchester United, a Manchester City, and Arsenal, you're exposed to far more one-on-one defending situations, far more counter-attacks against you, far more one-on-ones, 2-on-2s, 3-on-2s. A lack of speed, and Maguire just isn't slow. He's unbelievably slow. You can be like Nemanja Vidic, can't speak, wasn't electric, but he wasn't a slouch. He wasn't a slouch. He wasn't running through treacle wearing concrete boots with a parachute attached to his back. And Maguire very much is. And I think Rio is very right to call him out here. Man United need to move on. Man United need to move on to next levels. And I will point this out because I trust the Muppeteers as well. That, of course, the stories coming out about Man United needing a new centre-back. United were looking at a new centre-back irrespective of the Harry Maguire situation. So they're going to look to buy a new centre-back with Bailly Axel and Jones needing replacements because of injuries and leaving the club, etc. Anyway. So it's very important to add some balance to this. There is no doubt about it. And that may be where some Man United fans get frustrated with there might be leaks about Maguire, but that doesn't equate to why Ralph's looking for a new centre-back. We were looking for a new centre-back anyway. But I'm not going to totally disregard the element that, I think Ralph Rangnick is obviously trying his best to keep the confidence up of Maguire because he's probably going to be needed between now and the end of the season. But I do think he'll look to move him on next year. You stick a solid player and a leader in that back line with Varane around him, a new fullback coming in as well. And Man United could really start to rejuvenate that back line. But what's more important than any of this and what really needs to be focused on is the club need to stop these leaks. The club need to stop. They absolutely need to stop this information from coming out of the football club. It's an absolute atrocity. And I, for one, believe without a shadow of a doubt, this is coming from players, this is coming from staff, this is coming from board members, all with different agendas. Some of the leaks are damning. Some of the leaks are really positive about certain individuals, but it's all about self-preservation, setting the narrative. What we need from Manchester United is relative radio silence. I want this club to become like Liverpool, where sometimes it can be frustrating because we have no idea what the hell is going on. Operate in that way, instill the right culture and structure, start improving this football club. And one of the biggest areas you can do that in is stopping the leaks, out in the rats, and moving on from here. It needs to be done. It needs to be done soon, because Manchester United run the risk of being left behind now by Arsenal and a number of other clubs that are on the rise in the English game. I want your views. I want your opinions. Make sure you're smashing that like button, you're sharing this video, and you're leaving your comments below, and we'll speak soon. Thank you.